Hello? Hey. Okay. 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 I'm here.
I will look it now. And, okay. Okay. We think she's got it.
Okay.
Tell us when you can see it on your screen, please.
Not yet.
There you go.
See it. It's flashing. Go on. Back.
There it is. Hey, good. How you doing?
You can't see it now, can you?
No. See Joe Bajorski.
I am here. I can hear Jim Mahoney. I can't hear
Right.
anyone else.
They're still working on getting the presentation up on the screen.
Okay.
Jim, can you bring up the PowerPoint on your screen and share it?
I can try. Not something I've done before, but let's see what we can do.
I'm gonna set up my computer.
Host has disabled screen sharing. Maureen. Looks okay now.
I'm sorry, Jim?
Looks okay now.
You could see this, Jim?
Yes.
Oh. Okay. Correct. The meeting was really supposed to start at 7:30. I'm so sorry. Just
Oh,
kidding.
maybe not.
So all the folks that are on Zoom can hear. Please just, aside from Jim, everybody can hear me okay?
Yeah, maybe I don't have the screen share. Sorry.
Well,
Just don't do it.
It's showing on our screen. Is the, go back to the screen. Or that wasn't being shared? Do you have it on your
Okay,
screen?
whoever's speaking, I cannot hear. So if you're speaking, please speak into a microphone so the Zoom attendees can hear what's happening.
Joe, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? No.
I can hear you now. I think it would be better without the mask. I think the mask is probably muting some of your volume, but I can hear you when you speak.
Somebody else says, "Oh, stop, I'm having a seat."
Just get what
Hey, can I eat?
just go down the.
I'm gonna try Chinese food for this.
True.
So unfortunately, okay, so I am going to use, I am going to use the PowerPoint for the folks that are here in person. We will post the PowerPoint online so folks can see it tomorrow. But my name is Jennifer Coppola, and I'm an attorney with Sewell and D'Onofrio, which is Corporation Counsel for the town of Berlin. I also am going to be inviting Jim Mahoney, who is your economic development consultant, to chime in during the course of the presentation as well. Sorry that we're getting such a late start. We will make sure that this does not happen for the next informational meeting. Not quite sure why we're having such a technical problem, but so we're here tonight. This is the first, again, informational meeting for the public with regard to the affordable housing plan, which the town of Berlin needs to submit to the state by June 1st of 2022. And I'm going to talk first a little bit about what we're going to address tonight in terms of presentation topics. There will be at least one additional public informational meeting that will be held in 2022, early 2022. I think we have it slated for sometime in February. We don't have a specific date as of yet. But for our purposes tonight, I'm going to talk about Connecticut General Statute Section 8-30J and the legal requirement of submitting, again, an affordable housing plan, the process for preparing Berlin's affordable housing plan, the content of the plan as outlined in a guidebook that was issued by the Department of Housing and the Regional Plan Association, a timeline for completion of the plan, immediate next steps for the month of December this month and January, for completion of a housing plan survey, and also other community outreach that's going to be taking place for the purposes of gathering additional information from residents and other interested persons about the needs for affordable housing in Berlin and planning for same. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about what is affordable housing in Berlin's record of providing affordable housing. So first, to start, Connecticut General Statute 8-30J was passed in 2017. And again, it does have a requirement that at least once every 5 years, every municipality is to prepare or amend and adopt an affordable housing plan. And the deadline for submission of the first plan for each municipality under this statute is June 1st of 2022. It was originally July 24th. They did push that date up. The plan has to specify how the municipality intends to increase the number of affordable housing developments within that municipality. The municipality can hold public informational meetings, which we're doing tonight, or organize other activities to inform residents about the plan development process. The municipality must provide at least 35 days notice for a public hearing on adoption of the plan and must make the draft plan available to the public for review prior to such public hearing. Following adoption, the municipality must regularly review and maintain the plan. So this is, again, a requirement of all 169 municipalities in the state of Connecticut. All the towns are going, and cities are going through this process. In terms of the guidebook, I just want to talk a little bit about that. We are going to be putting the guidebook, and again, this is a guidebook that was prepared by the Connecticut Department of Housing, as well as the Regional Plan Association. And the intention of it, and at the beginning of it, you'll see all the various folks, and again, this will be posted on the town's website. We're creating a page for the, and I talk about the Affordable Housing Plan Advisory Committee that's been created by your town council in a moment. We're going to be creating a page for that committee, and one of the items that will be put on that page will be this guidebook. The guidebook basically sets forth the methodology for evaluating the housing needs assessment, completing a housing needs assessment, as well as the land use and zoning assessment for each town. And it also provides some guidance as far as the content of the plan. So in terms of the housing needs assessment, you're looking at the demographics of your town, your current housing supply, economic indicators, and then doing a gap analysis as well. We'll get into a little more detail as we go along with regard to that. And then your land use and zoning assessment is intended for the town to identify potential properties in town that might be suitable for affordable housing. As far as the content of the plan itself, this is on page 17 of the guidebook. The content of the plan that's suggested by the guidebook is that the plan have a community value statement, that it provide a history of affordable housing in your town, that it discuss the housing needs assessment undertaken by the town that I just mentioned, as well as the land use and zoning assessment, and identify goals, principles and goals for your town to create more affordable housing, and an action plan or implementation plan for reaching those goals. So part of the guidebook as well, there is a suggestion that a committee be put into place to assist the legislative body of the town, which in your town is your town's council, will be acting to adopt the affordable housing plan. The guidebook suggests that an affordable housing committee be created. And the idea behind the committee, again, is to assist the town in preparation of the affordable housing plan, as well as to encourage public participation and to keep the public informed about the process that's being undertaken to prepare the plan. And again, encourage community input, encourage community support for what the ultimate plan is. So you have a committee now in place of community leaders, folks who have served the town in other capacities or currently serve the town in other capacities, volunteers on boards and commissions. You have a small business owner. So you have a vibrant now committee put in place by your town council to assist, work with, I mentioned Jim Mahoney, also Maureen Giusti, who is your town planner, as well as a consultant that's been hired by the town to assist in drafting of the plan. So this next slide talks about what the affordable housing plan timeline is, so our process timeline. There was a meeting tonight, and that's why we were delayed a bit. You'll see for end of December 2021, committee meeting to review and finalize a housing survey and discuss strategy for additional data, information gathering, outreach by the committee to community groups and organizations and town departments to address and provide input to the committee, and then distribution of the survey. We are going to be distributing next week a survey. We want to encourage everybody that's here to participate as a first step in taking the survey. And the survey explains, again, a little bit what I've already discussed about why are we doing this, the fact that there is a committee in place. It also tells you about opportunities to participate. You can come to committee meetings. You can come to public informational meetings. As I indicated, part of the statute talks about having a public hearing on the plan. We're anticipating that public hearing, given that the deadline to submit is June 1st, your public hearing will be held sometime in April. So come to the public hearing, address the council about your thoughts about the plan. The plan will be posted, the draft plan that will go before the council for review. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities there. And with respect to the remainder of the survey, it asks you to take a look at what was your housing history, the types of housing that you've lived in during the course of your lives. Where are you currently living? Do you own? Do you rent? How many people live in your household? What is your future in terms of your housing? Do you anticipate that you're going to move within the next 5 years during which this plan will be in place, or sometime beyond that? Do you want to potentially move to a larger or smaller home? If you've thought about that, would you like to own? Would you like to rent? So where are you going? What are your personal housing needs for the future? And then also there's some questions in the survey about other individuals known to you, perhaps adult children that you have living in your house. You may have parents living with you. Are they looking for housing? What type of housing are they looking for? Again, you can see how all this information will be of assistance. Gathering all this information will be assistance to the committee and to the consultant and the staff that are supporting in drafting the initial affordable housing plan for the council's consideration. So that's basically the content of the survey. There's some general questions as well about what type of housing you think. You're going to have some photographs in the survey, what type of housing that you think that Berlin could use more of. And with regard to that, whether or not as well you believe that Berlin needs more affordable housing as well as non-income restricted housing. We also asked the question, do you believe that Berlin needs more assisted living? Because obviously that is of consideration in some communities as well. And then there's some demographic information that we're looking to get as well from you. One of the most important questions with regard to that is to find out how much are you spending on housing. There are many people in the state of Connecticut spending more than what is the advisable 30% on housing. So 30% of your income is what you should be spending on housing, and many people are far above that in our state. So we want to get a sense of, where are people at in Berlin. So you'll see the distribution of that survey will be coming next week. It's going to be posted throughout town. It'll be on social media. It'll be on the town's website. If you participate in activities in town, you may get it through an email list for an organization that you participate in. If you serve on a board or commission, town employees are going to be emailed a copy of it. So whatever you can do to encourage your neighbors, your friends, your family who live in town or live outside of town, who may be interested in moving in town to complete that survey. We're going to do press releases as well with regard to it when it is finalized. Please encourage people to take the survey, because the more information that we take in with regard to, again, people's current condition, where they want to go, where they want the town to go in terms of housing, the more informed the folks who are participating in the actual preparation will be. So please do support us in that effort. So moving on in the timeline, again, I mentioned community outreach. So the concept is that in January at the committee meetings, there are going to be certain segments of the community that are going to be invited to address the committee with regard to what their perspective is on housing needs in Berlin. Unfortunately, the committee didn't reach this tonight. We don't have those dates yet. I was hoping that we could get to that in our very short meeting that we had. But we'll put those dates out there as soon as we can. Again, there will be a press release. We will also post it on the town's website, so you'll see those dates in the town calendar for January. But we're going to invite some of your church leaders in, and other folks who work with people in need. We'll have various departments of the town too addressing the committee, planning and zoning being one, your various community services, your community services department, you have a commission on aging, you have a commission on persons with disabilities, police and fire, they make welfare checks, they're important to talk to as well. So those segments of the town government that are out there helping people, also local employers and job training agencies and services in the area to find out some more information about what they're seeing as far as current needs are concerned. We hear so often, we think about manufacturing. Manufacturing is important, but obviously we've heard so many stories about restaurants and other small businesses being impacted in current conditions. So we want to hear from, the committee wants to hear from those folks. So that's coming in January again, 2 to 3 committee meetings with community groups, organizations, town departments. The deadline for completion of the survey will be no later than January 15th. The deadline for completion of analysis of the survey data. The consultants, FHI is our main consultant, RKG is a sub. They're going to analyze the data that comes in from the survey, as well as what we collect from the community groups and organizations. And that analysis will be shared. What's envisioned for that is that a document will be created that does provide that analysis. That's something else that will be posted on the committee page, and interested members of the public, residents, can take a look at that and see, what results we got. In February, there'll be the first committee meeting with regard to the actual drafting and revision to the plan sections. So we'll start first, and I talked a little bit a moment ago about the guidebook providing that content. So we'll start first with community value statement and then the history of affordable housing in Berlin. And your PowerPoint for tonight, I don't know because of our late start, how far we'll get with this. But the PowerPoint has very detailed information about that very rich history of providing affordable housing in Berlin. So you'll be able to get educated on that when we post the PowerPoint. You have a number of affordable housing regulations. There are many towns that have none. And you have many successful developments in town that include affordable housing, many that have approvals that have not yet been constructed. And we're going to get into some of the details of that. The second committee meeting for the month of February will be to draft and revise the plan sections on the housing needs assessment and the land use and zoning assessment. Again, the land use and zoning assessment is going to be taking a look at, what properties in town would be appropriate for developing future housing. And we hope in February to hold a second public informational meeting at that time because we want folks to have an opportunity to, in a public meeting session, review what's been learned with regard to both assessments and ask any questions that they have and have a discussion about it in a public meeting session as well. In March, we'll have a first committee meeting that will look at drafting the section on plan principles and goals. And then the second committee meeting will be to draft, revise the plan section on actions and implementation of those goals. And there will be a final committee meeting in early April to finish the draft of the plan section on actions and implementation and any other cleanup that is needed. And then by April 5th of 2022, that's the first meeting in April for the town council. The town council will have in hand a draft of the affordable housing plan to then notice a public hearing on it. And again, that public hearing will take place later in April. So I just want to say this as well. It is the intention, and if anybody participated in the town council meeting in which the committee was appointed, or there were a couple meetings leading up to that as well, where I think the town manager and myself spoke about the committee. The committee will be providing updates to the town council. Now, as we're getting underway, those updates will become more frequent. So that way the town council does have the information that the committee has as well. So when it comes time for them to review that final draft plan, they'll be coming along with the committee at every step of the way. So they'll not be seeing information for the first time. So that way, there's a healthy discussion about the particular details of the plan, and the council's not going to need to be playing catch up about the assessment results and so forth, responses to the survey and such. So that's the very tight timeline on getting this done. Now, I get a lot of questions about 830G. I've handled a number of affordable housing appeals. I have been a land use attorney for 23 years now. And the law is confusing to a lot of people. And the simplest way to put it into perspective is, and we hear so much about the 10% goal, the 10% goal. And affordable housing is people say, oh, affordable housing, affordable to me, but it has legal meaning, right? And that's the perspective from which we need to look at it through this whole process. And yes, the statute does require that each municipality to be exempt from the affordable housing appeals procedure have 10% affordable housing in its town or city. So that's 10% of your total housing stock. Berlin, they do put out a list, an affordable housing appeals list every year, gets published by the Department of Housing. They're the folks who determine whether or not affordable units in your town actually get credit for being affordable, that they're in compliance with the law, the eligibility requirements. They put out a list every year, the Affordable Housing Appeals List. Your 2020 Affordable Housing Appeals List shows the town of Berlin at 9.24%. Berlin has been a leader on this list for years, but they do not enjoy the status of being exempt from that affordable housing appeals process in the statute. And quite simply, the statute provides a very heavy burden if the town are inclined to deny an affordable housing application, a very heavy burden to me in being successful in that denial. And I'm happy to answer any questions that folks have about the statute, but I'll just say this to you. One thing has been very clear through this whole process, and this is actually stepping back a bit in time. Before the guidebook was issued, there was a webinar that was hosted by the Department of Housing. And the folks that participated, who again, they control that list. They're doing housing day in and day out, affordable housing day in and day out. And they said that they understand that as towns go, municipalities, towns, cities go through this whole process, some towns are going to find that they need 4% affordable, and your neighboring community may find that they need 12%. They need more than the 10% threshold, not a goal, but a threshold in the statute. And that's important to keep in mind. We're not going to talk about in this process about whether or not this is going to change the law. Doing what we're doing isn't going to change the law. That can't be our focus. We don't have any idea. There have been many attempts made to change the law through the years that have been unsuccessful. And we don't know where this is going. So I can't answer that question for you. And I've been in enough webinars about this and had enough conversations with other municipal council to know that nobody knows that answer. So we've got to focus on the task at hand. So just moving along, there is, and this is posted, there are some particular requirements of the deed restriction. We've got certain requirements for government assisted affordable in the statute, as well as tenant rental assistance, and then CHFA and USDA mortgages provisions as well. So I'm going to post the statute as well on the committee page. That information will be there for you to review. But I don't want to get into it too much because no time is short. And again, if you have questions, I'm going to be at the committee meetings. I'll be at the next public informational meeting. I'll be there if you have specific questions about that. So in terms of Berlin's qualified affordable housing supply, currently, and there's a little screenshot here of the 2020 Affordable Housing Appeals List showing the non-exempt municipalities. And there's only about 30 exempt municipalities, and many of them have enjoyed that status for a very long time. But on the current list, according to the current list, you have 556 government-assisted units, 50 tenant rental assistance units, 142 CHFA, and then 4 deed-restricted units. And the government-assisted units, too, may be deed-restricted as well. That's important to point out. Of the 138 non-exempt municipalities in Connecticut, including, again, Berlin, there's only one other Weathersfield at 9.52% that has a high percentage currently of affordable housing. And again, if you look back and all the lists are available online through the DOH website, Berlin has enjoyed being at the top of that non-exempt list for a very long time. And Berlin, in fact, and Jim, I don't know if you want to mention anything about the moratoria that were granted, but Berlin is one of a handful of towns that have been granted moratorium, and twice Berlin was granted a moratorium. So it's an even smaller group of towns that have enjoyed that status from the Affordable Housing Appeals procedure. Jim, do you want to explain that at all?
No, just to say quickly that it's dependent on making 2% progress toward the 10% goal. And if you make the 2% progress, you get basically a 4-year moratorium or exemption from appeals under 830G. So, again, Berlin's one of just a few towns in the state that have gotten 2 moratoria, and there's only, I think, about 6 towns that have gotten any moratoria. So Berlin has made progress.
So the next group of photos, and again, I'm sorry that the folks that are participating remotely can't see these, but in the PowerPoint, there are a group of photos of various developments within and without town that have affordable units in them. So you could just get a sense of the various types and styles of projects that include affordable housing. Some are closer than others, like Heritage Garden. And we've got Orchard Ridge pictured on the right here, which is a Berlin project, as well as Stonebridge, also on the right. Some of you may be familiar with. Fieldstone Crossing and River's Edge on the right. And then some others. So in the beginning of the survey, we're including a chart that gives you a sense of what's affordable at that 80% area median income level. And this slide is meant to show for Sage Pond Place, it has the 2022 income levels and rents. And it, again, is an example, as the slide represents, an example of income qualifications for affordable housing in Berlin. So the maximum household incomes range from $18,275 to $56,340 to qualify for rental units at Sage Pond. This next slide also shows, again, examples of income qualifications for affordable housing in Berlin. So you can see the different income limits along the left there, depending on where a particular household, and these are based on, again, you'll see from individual households all the way to 8-person households. And it starts at 20% of the median income all the way to 80% that the statute uses. So in terms of recent housing development activity in Berlin, we have a lot of information to share with you. But from 2014 to the present, the town has approved 8 multifamily rental developments, including 4 that have affordable units. So of the 530 dwelling units in total, 112 are designated as affordable. 50 of these units are age restricted and affordable. 16 units are complete, including 4 affordable units at Newport Center, and then 16 units are under construction at 9 Steel Boulevard. So an important point, you cannot actually get credit for an affordable unit unless that unit is constructed and someone is living there. So units, even though they're, in fact, in recent years, I've heard from other municipal attorneys, there are sometimes multiple affordable developments that don't get built that have approval. So that's important, to keep in mind that you want to, if you're investing in it, you want to get a project through that is going to eventually get constructed. Moving on, Merit Properties, again, I mentioned Sage Pond Place. We give you some details about the income qualifications for Sage Pond Place. It's an 84 unit mixed income senior project. It's got 77 affordable units. Newport Center is a mixed income, mixed use building. And I sometimes have to stop myself. I want to make sure that everybody understands when we say mixed income, we're saying that it's a mix of market rate and affordable. So a mix of non-income restricted housing and then restricted income housing. Okay. And when we say mixed use, we mean that it has a commercial component. So Newport Center is a mixed income and mixed use building owned by Newport Realty Group. It has 60 units for affordable. 404 Berlin Turnpike is an approved mixed income, mixed use project with 200 units, 40 affordable. So these are all projects that are in development. We also have pending housing project in Berlin that still going through the process, I believe. Right? So 550 to 554 Berlin Turnpike, again, pending mixed income, mixed use project. It has 160 units and 32 are proposed to be affordable. You've had some denied projects. You actually haven't had a lot of denied projects. You had Broadview, which was Baker residential project that proposed 384 townhouses at Berlin Turnpike and Meadow Lane Ridge Road. 116 affordable units were proposed in that. It was denied because the project was proposed in an industrial category zone. And they did bring an appeal of that, I believe, and the town was successful on appeal. So the denial was upheld. Kensington Grammar School renovation and new units proposed by Metro Realty, that was also denied. And then we currently have pending litigation that I'm not going to discuss of Rio Vista Associates versus the Berlin Planning and Zoning Commission that included, it was, we don't have a specific development plan other than a conceptual development plan. That conceptual development plan has 319 units in it with 20% affordable. Town-owned housing properties. You do have, we've got to consider mobile homes. Okay, that's a housing type that consider. The town also owns and leases spaces at a 16-unit trailer park on Dunning Road. Town's plan of conservation development, I mentioned this downstairs to the committee. The town is also right now updating its plan of conservation and development. And they're going to be doing a separate survey with regard to the update of that plan. It's a document, it goes on a 10-year cycle. It's a document that guides the town's growth and development. Every 10 years it's updated, and that's by law as well. It's a legal requirement, statutory requirement. Berlin had, in its 2013 POCD, had it as one of its goals that the town should work to preserve current balance of housing stock while infusing any growth with a sense of traditional neighborhood design, compatibility with adjacent uses, and ownership options that support housing choices for people of diverse ages and needs. So one of the things that is being looked at is obviously not only what are the goals for the affordable housing plan, but what are the goals in the POCD with regard, again, to providing housing choices for diverse ages and needs. So that's being considered as part of that process as well of updating the POCD. So in terms of your zoning regulations, I mentioned earlier that Berlin has multiple zoning regulations that provide opportunities for affordable housing for applicants. So you have a neighborhood affordable housing development, NAHD. 30% of the houses are deed restricted at 80% of the median income level. I'm just going to stop there for 1 second. So under the statute, if somebody submits an application, okay, that's an affordable housing application under 8-30G, what's required is that 30% of the units be affordable, okay, in the proposed development. And half of that number, 15%, have to be offered at 80% of the area median income, and half have to be offered at 60% of the median income. So that's something to keep in mind as well, that is in the state law. So again, in HD, 30% deed restricted at that 80% median income level. There are 3 approved neighborhood affordable projects in your town. Arbor Commons has 6 affordable dwellings, Fox Hill has 10 affordable dwellings, and Tollgate Estates has 10 affordable dwellings as well. Other zoning regulations and actions that the town has taken to help facilitate affordable housing. There's housing for the elderly by Berlin Housing Authority. I know Mr. Kajorski is on. There's projects in all single-family residential zones by special permit. There's also, there's been previous WHD zoning map amendments for River's Edge and Fieldstone Crossing. And the next slide provides a list of regulatory amendments that have, again, amendments to your town zoning regulations that have helped to facilitate affordable housing since that 2013 POCD, which was your last adopted POCD. In 2014, there were amendments in the Planned Development District. In 2015, the Village District regulations, including the Kensington Village Overlay. 2015, there was rezoning, creating the village districts. 2019, rezoning to enlarge the village core and amend the text of the Kensington Village Overlay. In 2019, there was a creation of the BTD, Burlington Turnpike, mixed use development zone. The 2018-2021, there was a rezone for 2 separate areas to BTD in 2019 and 2021. And then the 2022, there was an amendment to the text for workforce housing, and a rezone to an additional parcel to workforce housing to WHD. I should have clarified to you that was what that acronym stands for. 2021, there's also a text amendment to create the planned residential infill development and to allow conversion of motels on Berlin Turnpike to residential units. 20% of the units must be affordable. And I know there have been other times, I think, as well in the town's history when developers have come forward with a development application, not intending to include affordable, and not, in fact, including affordable in the actual application submitted, where the town has asked for an affordable set aside. So, you know, staff is at the pre-application stage trying to encourage an affordable housing component be included in a proposed development. And then the commission as well, the commissions that have served throughout the years have also asked developers when they're before them a particular application that does not include affordable housing to have an affordable set aside. So I don't know, Maureen, if you wanted to add anything. Jim, do you want to add anything at this stage? I'm going to go into some of the demographics. Jim? Jim, did you want to add anything at this point?
No, all set.
Regulatory, okay.
I'll just add this morning, speaking that, as she said, sometimes when a proposal comes in to the Planning and Zoning Commission. It might be at the text amendment side end of the proposal where we amend that or ask for the amendment to the regulation, or the commission works to amend the regulation to provide for an affordable housing element in the regulation. So a proposal comes in to talk about the, without a site plan yet, but it's a regulation that allows for housing. And we say, well, if you want to put housing into that zone, or you want that kind of development, then can you add an affordable housing goal in there as well? And one of the important things to remember is that while we have that number, and I don't think Jennifer spoke to it yet, but while we have that goal of 10% that we're, or threshold of 10% that we're trying to achieve, through 830G, it's a moving target, because every time we approve a project at market rate, then you've got more units that put off your percent of how many affordable units are in relation to those units. So that's something to keep in mind when thinking about those numbers. The numbers are constantly changing.
That's a very important point, absolutely. So the next series of slides, Mr. Mahoney and your consultants have done a terrific job of putting together some demographic information regarding the town. Again, that informs, what's going on in the town over a period of time. So this next slide is about population change, right? And it covers 1970 to 2019. Some of the sources used, obviously, the census is used. There's a number of slides that are based on information from the Partnership for Strong Communities as well. But Berlin's population has grown at a steady rate in the 30 years between 1980 and 2010, but growth has started to slow since 2010. It's growing in those aged 45 and older, with the exception of ages 80 to 84. And population shrunk or grew at a slower rate in those below the age of 45. And Berlin, we need to compare ourselves regionally, right? We need to know what's going on in the state as well as regional area. But Berlin has consistently exceeded both Hartford County and the state in population growth over the past 5 decades. Growth in all 3 geographies was at a 5-decade low in the past decade, and you can see those percentages. So your population versus the region. In terms of projections, this is a population change projection for 2020 to 2040. According to projections conducted by the Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development, Berlin's population is expected to contract in the age cohort between 5 and 29 years old, and 45 and 64 years old. The projections were conducted in 2017, and this is an important note, disclaimer, if you will, that's when the projections were conducted, so they may not reflect any recent demographic shifts.
Just to mention Jennifer, quickly, one of the reasons that we question some of the projections is because of the large number of additional residential multifamily unit rental units that we've approved that haven't been built. So as those developments get built, we expect that population will grow faster than projected.
Okay, anything else, Jim?
That's it.
Berlin is projected to experience more growth than Hartford County and the state in those aged 65 or older. And Berlin's population between ages 40 and 64 is expected to contract more. So that's important information, right, in terms of determining future housing needs for the town as well. Berlin's population change is expected to be negative through 2040. The population change is directly inverse of Hartford County, which will remain positive through 2040. So you see that's to the right. Berlin's population density is comparable to Connecticut's, but it is much lower than your region, than your Hartford County region. In terms of race and ethnicity, Berlin is less racially and ethnically diverse than the state and Hartford County. But the town is more racially and ethnically diverse than it was in 2010. And Connecticut, as a state, experienced a greater shift in diversity over that same period. In terms of resident age, we'll go back to age. Berlin's population is significantly older than both Hartford counties and the states. So you have a median age 2019 of 27.5, whereas your region was at 40.4 and the state was at 41. Berlin's poverty rate is substantially lower than both Hartford counties and the state. Household size, in terms of the number of people living in a household, so your average household size in Berlin has declined from 2.67 persons to 2.48 between 2000 and 2018. In terms of housing types, Berlin has fewer householders living alone than Hartford County and the state. Berlin has a greater share of households with some older than 60 years old than Hartford County and the state. Okay, so the town manager has suggested that we perhaps conclude the presentation for this evening, but I don't want to do that without asking for any questions that folks have about what has been discussed at this point. We will, again, we will post this information, so it will be available. And in terms of how do you find, for people who are listening at home and people present here who aren't familiar with use of the town's website, in terms of how you will locate the committee page that we're going to be putting up. That page will be located if you go to the town website. Along the top there are tabs. There is a government tab. And if you click on that government tab, it lists all of the boards and commissions and committees of the town. So there will be a link under the government tab, again, for the Affordable Housing Plan Advisory Committee. You'll be able to find the PowerPoint under there. You'll be able to find the guidebook under there. You'll be able to find the timeline under there. And we will be continuing to post information about meetings under that tab as well. So do encourage you to stay informed. Is there anybody, I'm gonna start with the folks that are present in person as to whether or not anybody has any specific questions about the process or anything else that's been discussed.
The median income, is that based off the median income of the municipality or the state or some other metric?
So the area median income, so it's a regional, and that's indicated in the beginning of the survey.
A quick question on age-restricted affordable housing. So, noting just the new projects since 2014, it seems like a good number of them are age neutral in terms of providing affordable housing. Are you seeing just an overall general trend in providing age neutral affordable housing, and can we foresee that kind of in the next 5 years or so?
So I think that the town has in recent years that is accurate. In recent years, they are seeing less age-restricted projects being proposed. Absolutely. they were for a time getting one after the other in terms of age restricted. And obviously that was based on the marketability, of course, because developers aren't going to propose something that they don't think they can sell, right? Or rent. I don't know if, because I don't see those applications, those potential applications that don't make it to actual physical submission. So I don't know if maybe Maureen wants to comment. It may be that they're having conversation with folks about potential projects that I'm seeing. So.
I think overall the trend has been, market drives what applications we get. So that's where the driver is on that. But I think part of the process of going through the affordable housing plan will be identifying where the need is and seeing whether or not regulations or other, well, actually, if the need is found, they shall come. The developers will come if they find things and start proposing. If they find that the need is there, then if they want to take advantage of that, they'll give those proposals to us and come in with those applications. So I think it's yet to be determined where that need is in reality, because the perception is, maybe that we have a good number of age restricted units. At the same time, we have a population that fits that demographic. So maybe that's what we need, and we don't have that information completely as far as to drive them.
I'm sure that the survey will help inform a lot of those decisions. So the more of those we get back, the more it's informed to a choice.
One of the takeaways I've taken from the webinars we've attended on the affordable housing and the information for the planners and the zoning people and in response to the legislation is that what development of this plan will do is give some self-reflection and take stock of the town, and I think that's a terminology that's appropriate to use. See what you have versus perception of what you have.
Is that it?
Comment on another.
Fantastic, yes.
Jim may have more to answer.
I was just going to say another comment on the driver between age restricted and non is funding, governmental funding. And we've, certainly in recent years, we found that governmental funding has preferred non-age restricted projects. And that is part of the reasons that we're seeing more developers proposing those.
Anybody else who's physically present who has a question before we go to the folks that are participating remotely? Is there anybody who is participating remotely who has a question or wants to make a comment?
I would like to comment, Joe Bajorski.
Thank you, Joe. Go ahead.
All right. I wasn't clear on the volume, but I thought you said something about choosing sites for affordable housing. Are you guys going to be choosing actual properties to turn into affordable housing, or are you just going strictly by zoning?
So in terms of, again, this is, Joe, it'll become clear if you review the guidebook. In terms of the land use and zoning assessment, it says the following with regard to that assessment. Another important piece, and we speak first about the housing needs assessment. Another important piece is understanding how your town currently uses its land and what your zoning says about what types of housing can be built where. Together with the housing needs assessment, your land use and zoning assessment will help town better understand where affordable homes in your community currently exist and evaluate whether or where your town is able to create more affordable homes under the current zoning. So it suggests identifying underutilized lots for potential zoning, including but not limited parking lots in close proximity to transit, strip malls, or office parks with high vacancy rates, vacant lots and or vacant industrial sites, underutilized municipally owned properties. So in addition to that, I mean, you mentioned planning and zoning. It contemplates an analysis, obviously, from that introduction there of taking a look at, what are your regs require in terms of minimum lot size, maximum lot coverage, special permit requirements, parking requirements. You're probably aware, there was a change coming through this past year from the state with regard to proposed relaxation of parking requirements. That's opt-out legislation that planning and zoning is going to have to act on. So, it's part of what is being looked at. What are potentially available properties, and we're saying affordable housing plan, but I've repeatedly said to everybody I've talked to, this needs to be looked at holistically, right? You've got to look at housing overall, not just affordable. So, ultimately, this is part of the information gathering, and we'll see where it takes us.
Okay. I know the Housing Authority has worked with developers, because I've been involved in the process, to amend the zoning regulations to take advantage of certain zones where we could go with mixed use type zoning, where you have a housing component and a retail component. We've also looked at the zoning with respect to the redevelopment of the motels on the turnpike. I think as a group, if you come up with a plan, I think one of the goals would be some of the higher density housing, the affordable housing, to locate those in areas that have the necessary infrastructure. So we're not basically creating burdens on the tax base for, additional roads or sewers or water mains, for example. So I think, that should be something the committee takes into consideration, is areas that have existing infrastructure to support additional housing in those zones. And that's my comment with respect to that.
Thank you. It's a very important point, absolutely. Anybody else who's participating remotely? Any comments? Okay, well, thank you so much for attending, and the committee members, again, we'll get those dates out there for upcoming meetings, and the public is invited to attend. We're recording all of these meetings. They will be posted as well, so there's opportunities for folks who want to get educated about the issue, opportunities to watch the recordings and learn that way if they can't make it to a meeting. Okay, so thanks so much. Really appreciate your time. Sorry again, we got a late start. Take care. Thank you. Thank you so much, Jim.
Thank you.